that's so great about this experience is that we are not only writing these series, these individual series, we are writing one large story together. So the coordination that's occurring, not just through these summits, but through everyday correspondence on Slack, right?
With me today is comic industry critic, YouTuber, and retailer Perch from Perch on Comics. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm not doing too bad. I'm ready to talk a little bit of Dawn of X. It's firmly underway now. In fact, some of the new X-Men titles have already shipped their second issue. Perch, I know you championed Jonathan Hickman's X-Men reboot from the very beginning.
Yep.
What are your overall thoughts on Dawn of X now?
Well, I mean, I still think it's a good thing. I mean, it's definitely helped revitalize Marvel and the X-Men universe, and all of that stuff is good. And so it's pushed them several steps forward. Now, as we look at maybe entering the second quarter of this game, we're seeing some troubles, or at least some stumbles. Still we're ahead, but there are some maybe old habits or things starting to come back into play that you probably always knew were there and would show their face at some point, but a little bit of troubling signs on the horizon for sure.
Yeah, we're going to get to that here in a bit. But, for me personally, X-Force #1 and Wolverine's characterization are really the high points of the new X-Men series so far. What do you view as the best issue or character or moment in Dawn of X so far?
I've really liked a lot of what was done in, and so a bunch of little bits. I think X-Force, the Mystique bit was good. There were a lot of very true feeling moments in all the different comics. We've talked about it before, but in X-Men #2, that whole flavor, that title of the subplot at the end of Apocalypse and kind of how this story is coming together. It's nice to see Cyclops and the family element actually being a thing that's been just kind of ignored for at least 10, 20 years, I would say. So that's been really good. I've really liked what's happened in Fallen Angels. I like that noir punk flavor that Brian Hill has done there. I think there's a lot of good single moments and a lot of good promise. And then there were some other moments that you wondered, would they go forward or backward, and they went backward. And I think we're going to get into that.
Well, yeah, it hasn't been all puppy dogs and ice cream so far for Dawn of X. Specifically, the humor in Marauders has not hit with me at all. The dialogue and pacing in Excalibur are basically the issues or the concerns that I had for the series when it was announced. That it seems to be what's happening with Tini Howard's writing. What do you think the new X-Men creators need to work on moving forward to maybe clear up some of these issues?
Yeah, I think so. Hickman did a very good job, I think, with all the writers of creating interconnectivity, and you see that with the issues with the Xavier death and kind of how they're going to handle that, leading up to Jean Grey kind of putting on the mobile Cerebro and trying to resurrect him, and all those moments, that conflict has been well carried through with all the books, and that's been great. On the other hand, what hasn't been carried through well is the overall style and tone. And if you're going to have these books very interconnected, you need to have the humor and the dialogue and those kinds of pieces, at least in the same universe. If you read Hickman's X-Men, you read New Mutants, you read Fallen Angels, you see distinct voices there in all three, but they still feel like the same general pacing and feel of the universe. And then you head over to Marauders and you get what feels like tonally a very different book. And even though they're talking about things in the same universe, like you said, the humor's odd, the pacing's odd. It's just there's a bunch of what kind of questions that come up. And Excalibur is worse. Excalibur, Tini Howard, I think, believes that she's done titles where I think they're very crisp and well done, and she's done others that seem very rambly. And this one definitely has moved toward the rambly state. And so it's a bit of a shame. X-Force, we've seen one issue. I'm anxious to get a second and just feel how it progresses, because for me, a lot of the comics started out pretty well in issue 1, and the troubles really popped up in issue 2. So I want to see issue 2 of New Mutants. I want to see issue 2 of X-Force and kind of really understand a little bit better how those are going to track.
So, were you expecting, Blackface and Marauders? Like that one, I was pretty confused.
It's funny because it talks to our overall oversensitive society. I'm surprised there's no outrage. There's no people going, wait a minute, Pyro's doing blackface. I mean, in 20 years ago, he would have done this and it would just been kind of punk. I mean, I think some of the readers had this going on. You wouldn't really paid attention to it. But in today's society and where we're at right now, I am just surprised we're not getting a kind of preachy series of tweets from, you know, a number of people. And I know there's a big group out there that has knives just waiting to stick in Hickman's back. And so well, stay tuned. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of weeks this comes up and it goes at it. But Duggan is well liked in the industry, so how that all gets balanced, I don't know. Sorry, that was too long-winded a way of saying what were they thinking.
Yeah, I agree. Skip and I were both shocked. You know, you don't normally see that in today's climate.
No,
getting back to the Dawn of X, like one of the overarching themes that's really hitting with me is the effects Krakoa is having on the mutants. You know, some are changing physically, personalities are changing, some are even changing their names and identities. You know, is there one overarching theme or plot line through the books that you've noticed that's really hitting with you?
You hit on the same thing. We are completely in agreement. I mean, I love the alterations that are happening, and some of them are, I mean, they're being rolled out in many cases very subtly. And so it feels like we're in for a long ride. It feels like a year from now, 2 years from now, we're going to see really these effects come to roost of some of these characters. And so I love that aspect of it. I was really like the X-Men #2 plot of the two islands merging and you know, Death's Child. And just some of these elements are really cool for the mythology. I love that. My hope is that in 2 years, Hickman is still steering this boat, and he's not setting up these really cool items to play off of, and then it's handed off to, you know, writer X, who proceeds to then dump all over it. So I think a lot of good ground stuff is happening. I really like what they're doing with Krakoa. I love the mythology.
Yeah, it's been really effective. So what did you think of some of the more violent things that we saw? You know, Jean Grey saying, you know, let's get violent, you know, during X-Force. You know, Beast was getting his claws, you know, bloody, which we don't normally see. Does that concern you, or you think that's interesting?
I think it's interesting. I think it will be where it lands in the end. But if you're exploring this concept of the mutants are living in an isolated society, something that hasn't been natural for a lot of them, how's that going to change their personality? And then on top of that, if you give them the magic, I will always be able to come back to life card, then how does that affect, you know, how people are going to behave? Do they get more reckless? Do they get more determined? We also don't know. They haven't clearly stated, what did Xavier exactly tell the mutants to get them to agree to come to the island? It wasn't just, I have an island, come hang out. Did he go into some of what Moira told him of the fact that the humans are always going to hunt them down? And I mean, what has been said to get all these people in alignment? So if people like Beast and Jean Grey have been told, you know, 8 lifetimes and the humans always come after us and kill us, then does that change how they see the world? You know, couple that with immortality, it's going to have some effects. So I don't know if it's just kind of sloppy writing or if it's all part of a master plan to really dig into that. I'm hoping the latter, and I think it is the latter. But
I do too, because, you know, Krakoa has a history, and when it was introduced, it was essentially a mutant feeding island, right? You know, and all of a sudden we're supposed to believe it's like this benevolent island that's just welcoming everybody. You know, there could be sinister things on Krakoa's part, you know, as a sentient being itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the changes to Krakoa have been interesting. I think there's clearly they're going to do a lot of evolution to Krakoa and what it means to be with mutants and how it may change mutants. There's just a lot of meat there. So I'm interested to see where it goes.
Absolutely. So, you know, Marvel's February solicits are out, and we're getting some more details of Dawn of X Wave 2, featuring Ben Percy's Wolverine, Hickman's Giant Size X-Men, and Chip Zdarsky's X-Men Fantastic Four miniseries. I know I'm finding the $8 price point for Wolverine and the not giant size page count of Giant Size X-Men off-putting. You know, what are your thoughts of Wave 2?
I mean, I'm excited to see some of these stories, and I think the writers and the teams on them are fine. I think like Wave 2 and kind of Dawn of X in general, there's a lot of problems here with the X-Men universe and how Marvel as a publishing company is going to steer this. I think the higher price points are bad. The giant size X-Men as a marketing gimmick for the title, and then it not being giant sized is I mean, they're going to get panned for that. Absolutely. And the price point, I mean, just overall in the industry, it keeps being a problem, and the publishers keep ignoring that it's a problem. They keep just going, well, we'll just keep doing it and people are buying, so no worries. And it's almost like it's what's the frog boiling in the water. They're just getting acclimated to this idea that they are slowly losing customers. The price point's going up, so they're making more money, but at a cost. I think that these problems are going to plague Dawn of X. I think, and we can get into it more, but the double shipping that they did here that's going on right now, November, December, that was a bad move. It was a bad move for people's wallets. It was a bad move for titles like Fallen Angels, which I think we're going to talk about. But it's doing that doesn't increase hype. I mean, you didn't need to do that. Hickman and what they did with Dawn of X, everybody was talking about it. People were excited. You didn't need to double ship in a month in order to keep that excitement rolling. People were already there. And in some cases, I think you look at some of the number 2 issues coming out, Marauders and Excalibur, especially Excalibur, I actually think the reception would have been a lot stronger if it had been a full month before issue 2 came out and some more content had happened. But the fact is, it's shooting out faster than normal. It's causing people to be a little bit more critical, and and it's you will see it affect the art. Things will look rushed.
Well, we've already seen, some of the X-Men titles be pushed back. We saw some of the New Mutants books get resolicited and kind of reordered and stuff. So it's clear there's some people are having troubles keeping up with this sped up deadline.
Yeah, it is. And you see it with Brian Hill's Fallen Angels, where we're going to get a hiatus, and we don't know completely what that means. He has said that he will return to the story. It was more or less planned. But if you think about it, they shot 2 extra issues out in the year by double shipping for 2 months his book. And they didn't need, that would have been an extra 2 months to his hiatus, which might have bridged the gap completely. So why did they do that? They shot issues out and now we're going to have a delay. It's bad planning, honestly, on the part of whoever is doing this. Maybe this is Hickman, who's also got his hands in this. It's bad planning, it's bad strategy, and you're already at a company that has a lot of troubles with rushed art and scratchy art, and just if you're trying to do a tightly coordinated universe, playing around with the shipping schedules is just going to make that job very hard. No, it's funny. I mean, the publisher is its own worst enemy in this case. They did this, which they've double shipped for a lot of new series to give them an extra boost, but in many cases, those series didn't have the hype and the interest and the attraction coming in. So
yeah, it's that flood the market strategy really worked with House of X and Powers of 10. You got 1 year's worth of amazing sales compressed into 3 months, but by the time that was finished, there is so much hype and there's so much enthusiasm, expectations for Dawn of X. They didn't really need to flood the market anymore because they already had the market. So I agree with you. It's kind of coming back to bite them a little bit.
It is, and it seems like it's coming at the expense of the titles. And so in Wave 2, as we're adding more books to the mix, what Marvel can't do, or what they needed to do with X-Men, and what maybe they don't realize, is that Hickman created a very tight, very contained universe where you could come in, you could buy the issues, House of X, Powers of X, Power 10, and then you could buy these 6 new series, and it was like a nice contained unit. And fans really liked that. People bought it. Comic buyers bought it and really enjoyed it. And so now if you're going to a world where the comics are going to come out at random intervals, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, you're going to get a hiatus with Fallen Angels, and then you're going to have these new books kind of coming in. Some are limited series, some are one-shots, some are anthology books, and you're confusing everything. If you're doing that, now you have to do an extra good job of making sure the fan base knows these are the comics that you should buy, this is how they're all connected, and it won't stick. It's a bad plan. Like you said, they didn't need to do this. They had the hype, they had the attention already.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate you talking some Dawn of X. You weren't here for our last Adamantium hour, and I definitely wanted to hear your thoughts on how Dawn of X, the first wave of books, is gone.
Yeah, well, we'll catch up. There will be more, and I look forward to joining you guys again soon. And it will be interesting to see as we move into issue 3 of these comics, which way the trajectory is going. I think like I said, there's some really good books. X-Men has been really solid. I think X-Men number 2 was great, had a nice old classic feel to it. X-Force feels like it's off to a good start. Fallen Angels feels like it's off to a good start. I think New Mutants is fitting a nice little category. Marauders, a lot of people liked issue 1. Issue 2 went really south for me. And Excalibur is just, it's almost all the worst instincts coming out. So now let's throw in Wolverine Giant Size Chip Zdarsky's book, delays. We'll see how it goes, but troubled waters ahead, I think. But hopefully the core story stays great.
All right. Thank you very much, brother.
Thank you, sir.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.